I'm going to talk about shape sorters. This is a shape sorter. If you have young children, everybody has a shape sorter. They probably have maybe 2 or 3 of them of different sorts, maybe a mushroom or an animal that you can post things into. But this is just a very basic one that I've kept. We've all also sat and watched our children doing or trying to put shapes into their shape sorter, and not very successfully, taking the shape and trying to force it into shapes that don't go. And even if they've got the right shape to go in the right hole, they're trying to put it in the wrong way. It's a very difficult concept for children to understand. We've also, and I've done this as well, is stepped in when they're struggling and actually said, no, it's not that shape, this one goes in here, or no, we need to turn it round and fit it in the right way. And that's fine. With a bit of help, it will go in with your assistance, but it actually isn't helping the child to understand the orientation of the shapes. That's what it's all about. Learning to understand the orientation of that shape within space and within that shape, that slot it's got to go into. So because I found that my children were struggling trying to put these shapes in, because basically they didn't have that concept or the coordination or the experience or the practice of being able to do it, they hadn't built that up. It was sort of fairly frustrating sort of toy to be playing with. So I decided I would make one where all frustration was eliminated and all they had was success and enjoyment. So I started with a shoebox. This is a very old shoebox. Things are rolling out of it. And this is the original shoebox that I made 30 years ago. Into the shoebox, which has cardboard, which is fine for cutting. If you have a box which is too thick in cardboard, you're going to find it very difficult to make the cuts. If you haven't got a shoebox with a lid that comes off or flips over, then you could use a tissue box, which would work just as well. You'll just have to cut 3 of the sides of the rectangle on the top so it can be flipped up. It won't be as sturdy, but it will do the job. But the shoebox or something similar to this is ideal. And so I cut out the shapes. These happen to be mathematical shapes, but they could be any old shape, any old regular shape at all. And I put 2 in the side and 2 in this side here. Not in the end, because they have a more cardboard secured on the end. And you can see how well used it's been. These are a bit floppy now. This one's completely been torn away, but it was a well-used toy. So what it meant then, they could go through that lovely, satisfying process of posting things, which is what they want to do. Children want to post things into spaces. But they were successful. So any size of toy could go in any one of these holes. Doesn't matter, this is the top of a deodorant, doesn't have to be a toy, it can be anything from around the house, top of a deodorant or hairspray or whatever it might be. These were great favourites of mine. These are practice golf balls. You won't have those. They can be bought online, but they were great favourites, and I was very happy about them because they had little holes in, so they couldn't they were too big to go in their mouth. But you need to be very careful of whatever you give your children to play with when they're young. It's not too small so that they can't then put them in their mouths. So practice golf balls used to go in. Bottle tops, great for all sorts of games and counting. Bottle tops can go in. Lots of things, anything. Sometimes I'd find socks in there and various things at the end of the day. And then of course the pleasure was to take the lid off, which again in itself is an exercise where they have to practice the idea of taking things off, putting them back on again, taking them off, putting them back on again, and then all the objects would be tipped out, rolled on the floor, just bounced away, and then the lid goes back on, and then the joy of posting it all back in again. Hours of happy fun for no money and very little effort, just a shoebox. But the success that comes from it and the pleasure and the whole learning process is wonderful. I also, on the same idea, just had a little box. So a slightly different thing. Instead of lifting off a lid and putting it back on again, which was something to learn to how to physically be able to do, it was an opening up of a box. So this was just a little box, and I cut a shape in, again, anything, any shape will do, doesn't matter. And anything can be posted through that box at all. And then it was opened up, things were tipped out and put back again. And this is something children will do over and over again. The repetitiveness is their learning process. So the fact that they are repeating it over and over again, they are just learning not only the physicality of doing it and the pleasure from doing it, but they're learning about shape and space without them even realizing it. They're learning that this shape will fit through there. Not the same shape, doesn't matter. They might try and put this in there. And as hard as they try to push in, it won't go in. It's too big. They don't understand it's too big, but they are learning the fact that some shapes go in, some shapes don't go in. And this is all about the concepts that they're building up about shape and space. Their whole world when they're young is to do with shape and space. Nothing else. It's not to do with counting and number and anything like that. It's all to do with shape and space. So all activities really when they're young are involved with shape and space. And of course, language. Language is important. Even if they don't have language, you have language, and so you spend your time talking to them about what's happening. So how would the language, if you were sitting there watching them play, how would the language take place? You might just say something like, oh, you're going to put the ball into the box. Into something, the whole idea of something going into. Are you taking the ball out of the box now? You're going to put it back into the box again. It's rolling out. Look, that ball's going to roll over. They're not necessarily understanding the words, but everything is going into their brain and they will be assimilating that over a long period of time. So they're my two Post-it toys. I had others, but these were the two I'm showing you before they go on to use the more commercial toy, which becomes a lot later.